Just you wait till I take you home. We've got no future, we've got no past. Here today, built to last. In every city and every station, from Lake Geneva to the Finland station. In a western town, a dead world, the eastern world, western girl. In a western town, a dead world, the eastern world.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anna Spak. I'm President Generation Female, and I'm so excited to invite in our stage on our special webinar Zeina El Zogbi, PhD candidate ex Marseille University Economic Law Unit, and Noor Aboud, in-house legal counsel, business law, IP, IT, data governance. So today we're going to have a very special webinar, blockchain technology, legal opportunities and challenges. Noor, Zeina, please join us. Unmute yourself, join us. Perfect.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
So Zeina and Noor, it's your stage, and I'm very happy to give you word and run this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. So, hello to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Generation Female and especially Anna Spak for allowing us to share our knowledge and on this ever-growing field, which is blockchain. I am Zeina El Zoghbi. I'm a third-year PhD candidate at Aix-Marseille Université. I am working on criminal law and blockchain technology from an economic and financial perspective. And I am very glad to share this webinar with my colleague Noor Aboud. I invite you to introduce yourself. So
hello, Zeina. Hello, Anna. Thank you very much for for the preparation of this webinar and for organizing it. I am Noor Aboud. I'm a legal IP IT in-house consultant. I work in the digital sector, and I have 2 master's degrees, one in intellectual property and international trade law, and the second one in algorithmic law and data governance.
Okay, thank you, Noor. So we are going to start our webinar. We are going to talk about the legal opportunities and challenges created by blockchain technology. Our outline will be in 4 main points. First of all, we are going to define blockchain technology and its use cases. Second of all, we are going to see where blockchain technology renews the law, particularly in the civil law framework, financial law framework, and Noor is going to talk about the IP framework. Third, we are going to talk about how blockchains challenge the law to at last conclude by a question if we can or we should combine law and technology instead of opposing them. So to start, what is blockchain technology? According to report Le Gleu, called The Technological Challenges of Blockchains, blockchain is a technology for storing and transmitting information, allowing the creation of replicated and distributed registers without a central control, body, or authority. It is secured by cryptography and structured, as we can see in the image, by blocks linked to each other at regular time intervals. So when we recall a distributed ledger technology such as the blockchain, we cannot but precise 4 principal elements. 1, a peer-to-peer network. 2, a distributed decentralized database. 3, cryptographic methods ensuring the maintenance of the security in this peer-to-peer network. And 4, a consensus protocol based on the proof of work. Now, we have 4 main types of blockchains. We have, first of all, public permissionless blockchains. They have advantages that are independent, transparency, and trust, but also they lack in terms of performance, scalability, and security due to the consensus protocol that is the proof of work. Permissionless blockchains are used mainly in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, for example. Then we have private permissioned blockchains where the control and the access and the performance are controlled. However, the private blockchain can be corrupted where they lack in terms of trust and auditability. We use them in supply chains and asset ownerships. Hybrid blockchains, their advantages are access control, performance, scalability, but they lack in transparency and in terms of upgrading. They are used in medical records and real estates. Consortium blockchains have many advantages and they lack in transparency. Consortium blockchains are used in banking, research, but also in supply chain. When we recall blockchain technology, we cannot forget its first use case, that is Bitcoin. The democratization of the internet in the 1990s promised an evolution in terms of the monetary system. Milton Friedman predicted that the digital revolution will spur the advent of an e-currency that will greatly limit the role of the government and allow two strangers to make transactions. This affirmation leads us to consider the entry in the game of Bitcoin. It is a global currency for a globalized world. It is defined by Satoshi Nakamoto, the pseudonym of its unknown creator, as a peer-to-peer electronic payment model, allowing money to be sent directly from one person to another, of course, without going through a financial institution. Here we can cite the technical aspects of Bitcoin. First, we have decentralization, anonymity, transparency, and Bitcoin has an economic importance because the use of this cryptocurrency could cut the cost of many transfers for example, people who work abroad and need to send money to their families. And by the security Bitcoin offers, it can help to alleviate the budget invested by banks and the national economy in the fight against fraud. Also for countries, for example, in a state of currency crisis and inflation, it offers, surprisingly, a source of financial stability. Now, for the main part, blockchain and its connection to the legal fields. Blockchain was in fact built on a libertarian doctrine. Here, it is not for us a question of having illicit behaviors that would escape the state law by using the blockchain. It's important to note that law, before being a norm or before having to do with one or more social relations, it's an organization, a structure, and an attitude of the very society in which it is enforced and which through it is set up as a unity, as a being existing by itself. So blockchains, first of all, compete with the law because they offer a new form of trust, a community-based trust, and they are a consensus-based technology. Blockchain can also strengthen state sovereignty. Blockchains and central public authorities can have a cooperative and complementary relationship. Blockchains can support the strengthening of state borders, and this ledger can be used to solve the problems of administrative deficiencies, thus reinforcing the effectiveness of the control of the states on their territory. And of course, blockchains are a tool that could help states extend their territory to the cyberspace. Blockchains also question state sovereignty because they replace central traditional authority with a decentralized consensus. And here, the principle of Westphalian sovereignty are widely challenged by the phenomenon of blockchain. Some countries, for example, have agreed to lose all of or part of their monetary sovereignty. For example, El Salvador, which has made Bitcoin a legal tender currency. And here it is the attributes of state sovereignty that are affected directly by the emergence of new technologies like blockchain. Borders, currencies, and the ability to dispense justice are all challenged. So now moving to the legal opportunities created by blockchain technology. A blockchain solution can have a variety of manifestations, some which could have a legal component. In this graph, we can see four main opportunities offered by blockchain in terms of digitalization, smart contract, securities, and record keeping. I am especially going to talk about the legal opportunities from a civil law framework and financial law framework. Blockchains, because they have a passive role of being a ledger or a register, can be a sort of an evidence, a proof of evidence. They can be used to record agreements between two or more parties, and for compliance also with tax obligations, or for the use of suspensive or dissolving solutions of legal acts. Now, while the use cases of civil law in terms of evidence are governed by common law, the use cases in financial law are special and are governed by special financial law. And here we ask ourselves, where does financial regulation meets blockchain technology? We have four main points. In terms of initial coin offerings, ICOs, in terms of cryptocurrencies, stable coins, and central bank digital currencies. First of all, ICO is the form of crowdfunding where a company sells a cryptocurrency as a form to raise money. Here, investors receive cryptocurrency in exchange of their financial contributions. Cryptocurrencies, as we saw in Bitcoin, are very volatile. And here we ask ourselves a question about the supervision of certain payment tokens that can be difficult due to their technological specificity, such as anonymity, transparency, etc. Then we move to stablecoins. Stablecoins are issued by private entities and are intended to serve as a means of exchange for transactions executed on the blockchain. And stablecoins are made to overcome the volatility intrinsic to cryptocurrencies. They are often paired with a legal tender currency, such as the US dollar. And at least we have the CBDC, central bank digital currencies, which are a form of crypto assets that are created and destroyed by the central bank alone. And they circulate on the blockchain. But here we kind of have a type of private blockchain technology where we can see a central body or authority controlling the crypto asset in place. So now I'm going to let Noor Aboud talk about intellectual property law and practice in the blockchain.
Thank you, Zena, for this technical and legal overview about the blockchain technology. Well, as you were saying, blockchain technology is claimed to be and perceived as one of the most revolutionary technologies that will have an enormous impact on our lives in the forthcoming years. The legal questions surrounding blockchain appear to be among the most controversial issues surrounding this novel technology, which create uncertainties as to the scope and the speed of its eventual adaptation. The technological advancement offered by blockchain promise wide range of use in a variety of sectors and legal areas, including the intellectual property law. More specifically, on its potential impact on the registration, on the management and enforcement of intellectual property rights. But for those who are not familiar with intellectual property, let's just try to define what is an intellectual property right. IP refers to creations of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs and symbols, names and images used in commerce. IP are protected by law. They have a legal right. We're talking about intangible potential assets. And with IP rights, the government or the state give a monopoly to the IP holder in order to commercialize his own products and signs. And from a legal perspective, we say that it's a negative right because it prevents others to use his or her creation for a definite time. Can you please move to the next slide, Sina? Thank you. So first of all, we have the patent. A patent is an exclusive right granted for an invention. Generally speaking, a patent provides the patent owner with the right to decide how or whether the invention can be used by others. In exchange for this right, the patent owner makes technical information about the invention publicly available in the published patent document. So in order to be patentability, in order to be protected, an invention must be new, must be useful, and inventive. Can we move to the next slide, please? Trademarks. All of us may know what is a trademark. A trademark is a sign that is capable of distinguishing the goods or services of one enterprise from those of other enterprises. Trademarks date back to ancient times when artisans used to put their signatures or mark on the products. Copyrights. Can we move to the right? A copyright is a legal term used to describe the rights that creators and not inventors have over their literary and artistic works. Works covered by copyright range from books, music, paintings, sculpture, and films, even computer programs, databases, advertisements, maps, and technical drawings. And finally, the industrial designs. What is an industrial design? It constitutes the ornamental or the aesthetic aspect of an article. A design may consist of a three-dimensional features such as the shape of or the surface of an article, or of two-dimensional features such as patterns, lines, or colors. The technological advancement offered by blockchain promise wide ranges of use in a variety of sectors and legal areas, including its potential impact on the registration, the management, and the enforcement of intellectual property rights. Basically, no, if we can go back to the previous slide, thank you. So basically, the files to be registered in the blockchain, they are converted into hash. We say that they are hashed. What is hashing? Hashing is converting into a file into a sequence of numbers and letters. Only this hash is registered, is anchored in the blockchain, and is thus accessible to all users of the blockchain, ensuring the confidentiality and the durability of the blockchain. The anchoring then gives rise to the delivery of a timestamp certificate mentioning the hash. The blockchains here allows in this way to ensure an unfalsifiable and certain date. Since the hash marks are assigned only once, the modification of the file already anchored leads to the modification of the hash. A hash can therefore only be attached to one file and so on is unforgeable. To prove the anchoring of a file, it is necessary to verify that the hash mentioned in the certificate corresponds to the file in question. This will be done by comparing the hash recorded on the blockchain and the calculation of the hash of the file to be verified. Thus, the technology is totally secure. The blockchain offers several advantages: timestamping confidentiality and unfalsifiable information, anonymity of users, and the absence of spatial or temporal limits. This technology used for intellectual property can meet several needs. Can we move please to the next slide? The possible future adoption and implementation of blockchain technology by IP right registries might bring with it some significant advantages. The biggest potential for the adoption of blockchain is the development of a fully automated IPR registration process that would make it possible to assert one's IP rights without any human intervention or even requiring an institution. The process of registration for an IP right is often complicated and costly. Registration is made at the national offices of the countries selected within the scope of the protection, knowing that each country has its own office, and in some regions, in order to make the registration process much easier, we do have regional or international offices, just like the EU IPO or the WIPO or the OAPI for the African countries. Furthermore, in most cases, registration only enables the right holder to enforce his or her IP right in the country in which the intellectual property right is registered. Considering the globalization phenomenon and the global nature of commerce, this limitation is not suitable or adequate to the needs of rights holders, particularly in the light of the rapid pace of commercial life in the modern economic system. And often, the approval waits time and a lot of time of IP offices and other regulatory bodies that are very, very long. This delay can hamper the first mover advantage in many industries where incumbents must act fast to protect their inventions and stay at the top of the game. Well, by replacing centralized or registration system with decentralized ones using blockchain, it will be much easier to register new IP and update filings and transfer ownerships at any time. Blockchain technology might once again be the key that could unlock IP rights by making the registration process much easier, faster, and cost-effective, and thus alleviating the procedure and enforcement related burdens faced by IP rights holders. Can we move to the, so just to give you an insight, the EU IPO, the European Union Intellectual Property Office, has launched the first ever European blockchain platform to better serve public IP institutions and their clients. If you know the TM View and the Design View, they are the two flagship search services provided by the EU IPO. They are now using blockchain to bring super fast, reliable, and secure delivery of IP right information. The Genesis block of the blockchain was created at 8:10 a.m. On 17 April 2001, and at that precise moment, the UIPO connected to TM View and Design View via the blockchain to deliver trademark and design data in real time. These search tools gather more than 62 million trademarks and 70 million designs from across the EU and even beyond. Can we move to the next slide? Thanks. Blockchain technology has significant implications for some aspects of the management also of the rights. In the modern IP system, certain activities involving the management of IP rights, such as licensing, the identification of right holder, are mostly conducted by third parties. Blockchain technology can once again be useful in this context by removing the need for such third parties and lowering the costs of the management of IP rights. Now, the most beneficial effects, Now, the most beneficial effect of blockchain technology concerns the management of copyrights. as blockchains creates and open up completely new markets for the right holders, while also enabling them to collect their royalties directly from the users. Okay, if we can move to the following slide. Okay, so here's an example of managing a copyright on blockchain. It's a platform, Mycelia. It allows users to upload their work of art and store them via blockchain. And the record enables the creator to demonstrate the date on which the work was created, and the calculation of the gains and tracking the records. So the third impact, the last and perhaps the most important feature of an IP right is its enforceability. For IP rights to have any legal meaning, the right holders should be able to enforce their rights effectively in coordination with the police and customs officers who are in charge of detecting such breaches. However, from the perspective of an enforcement authority, one particular issue, namely counterfeiting, produces very high costs for the IP worldwide. Customs and police officers who do not have all the necessary tools or means to detect whether a good is authentic or not are willing to use blockchain technology in order to serve as a trusted ledger in this scope and in this area. Using blockchains for the storage of information about goods would enable interested parties to check authenticity at an instant moment and in real time. And this would be true not only for customs and police officers, but for the end users as well. In the modern globalization economy, the identification of counterfeit goods is a really significant issue. Today, many goods contain unique barcodes or QR codes, but what is being improved nowadays is installing a QR code on every product and registering them in a public blockchain. This will let us to enable each concerned party to trace and track the products even after they have been sold. It is easy to see that this would accelerate the speed of supply chain management and the information regarding the number of goods sold or in stock. They would be available in real time to the supplier and to the retailer at the same time, as well as to any other interested parties. Ultimately, it is obvious that blockchain technology can be highly useful in terms of protecting, managing, and enforcing IP rights. The long-term promise of the technology is quite appealing, and this opportunity is being given a serious consideration by the authorities. Now, Zeina, I give you back the floor to discuss about the blockchain challenges.
Thank you, Noor, for this interesting work on the IP framework. So we are going to talk about now blockchain challenges. As we see in the graph here, we have 4 types of challenges in terms of sustainability and environmentally wise, then in terms of standardization. But I am going to specially focus on the criminal world and the legal regulations concerning blockchain technologies and the lack possibly of expertise. Critics of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies have long contended that their widespread use would empower hackers and other criminals, purported anonymity, ease of cross-border transport, lack of clear regulations, and settlement finality are all features of cryptocurrencies that may appeal to those who wish to skirt the law. So here we are going to talk about the typology of economic and financial crime on the blockchain technology, starting from 3 main use cases where cyber criminals used three main or three key features of cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology: anonymity, ease of cross-border transportation, and lack of clear regulation. So the first use case is Silk Road. It was considered as the dark side of cryptocurrency. In February of 2011, Ross William Ulbricht founded the site Silk Road because he dreamt of an online marketplace where people would be able to buy and sell narcotics and other illicit items without, of course, governmental interference. And while the users of a darknet site can use Tor or virtual private networks to obscure and hide their identities, they had no way of exchanging anonymous payments among themselves, short of sending envelopes full of cash via the postal service. Ulbricht got around this conundrum by using Bitcoin as a payment method. Bitcoin addresses do not require a bank account, an ID, social security number, or name, and they are free to open and maintain. Bitcoin's decentralized ledger, the blockchain, provided a way to verify that payments had been received or sent. By using Bitcoin, the only identifying information for a narcotics transaction would be the address of the receiver, a problem solved by using an anonymous PO box. Here, Ulbricht would act as an escrow service between buyer and seller and would profit from commissions taken from every transaction. Senator Chuck Schumer held a press conference where he called on the DEA and the FBI to shut down Silk Road, which in fact happened on 2014. But however, many cryptocurrency advocates saw the arrest of Ulbricht as a positive development. The saga of Silk Road undoubtedly provided significant exposure to the idea of Bitcoin and all decentralized currencies. Although this experience left a bad impression in the minds of many people who viewed Bitcoin as a vehicle for crime, Silk Road also provided an example of how Bitcoin could function in the real world, proving that a decentralized currency was able to last and transfer value between participants in a global marketplace. Second use case is Liberty Reserve. It is a case where we reveal the link between virtual currencies and crime. To carry out its operation, Liberty, which was not subject to constraints of recognized money transfer organizations, such as Western Union or MoneyGram, and which could therefore charge very low commissions, used a digital currency in its name, allowing it to transact with all currencies in the world. This criminal association had become, judges the New York prosecutor, a financial crossroad of the world of cybercrime, facilitating a wide range of online criminal activities, such as credit card fraud, identity theft, investment fraud, computer hacking, child pornography, and drug trafficking. The Liberty Reserve affair is the first major case of the use of electronic circuits that were not deregulated, but really never regulated. The last case we will be talking about is Assassination Market. It is a crowdfunding platform to contribute Bitcoins to a sort of pot de meurtre for politicians. And here, finally, the crime consummated, the assassin will be recovering the whole of the pot de meurtre. To guarantee contributors a high level of anonymity, the founder of the website recommends only sending Bitcoins through Bitcoins that have passed through laundries and that will allow the transfer between two addresses without it being possible for an outside observer to establish a link between the two. These were the main three cases, the main famous cases when we can talk about cryptocurrencies and cybercrime. Now, is it possible to regulate blockchain technology? Though blockchains comes with ability to transform almost every business around the world, it requires a regulatory oversight. The various hacks using blockchain technology, and more particularly cryptocurrencies, largely explain the grouping, often encouraged by states, of the various actors of the sector in order to organize themselves and release set of rules. We have four main examples: Korea Blockchain Association, Virtual Currency Exchange Association, Crypto UK, and in France we have Adam and Chaintech. And all these associations were mainly about compliance measures, ethic measures to kind of incorporate the regulation of blockchain technology and protect investors from all the challenges perpetrated by blockchains. In this map of 2021, we have an overall aspect of countries who prohibit, restrict, allow crypto assets, and where the regulation is generally still pending about crypto assets. So as we can see in the red countries, crypto assets are generally prohibited. In the orange countries, crypto assets are restricted. And the green countries, they are allowed. And in the white countries, regulations are still pending. So in terms of regulations, we have general regulation and special ones. General regulations are about anti-money laundering and GDPR. Special regulations, and particularly in France, we have the Pact Law. The Pact Law will regulate digital asset services and the virtual service providers in terms of initial coins offering. In line with the Anti-Money Laundering Directive number 5, crypto regulation focuses on AML, counter-financing terrorism obligations. The French regime applies to providers of digital asset services defined by the monetary code, by the French monetary code. First of all, we have custody of digital assets on behalf of third parties. We have buying and selling digital assets in legal tenders, trading of digital assets, operations of trading platform between users, and other services. The Pact Law regime is divided in two levels: a mandatory registration for the first 4 services in front of the AMF, which is the French monetary regulator, and an optional license for all services. Now, for the anti-money laundering requirements, French authorities reinforce regularly the requirements on digital assets for the international and European regulations, and they have a system of warnings in front of TRACFIN. They base their regulation on due diligence modulation, on client's characteristic, and on the traceability of destination country of the funds, such as, for example, know your client or know your customer. Now, to conclude, we ask ourselves a question: can we create what we call a MOF, manageability, objectivity, accuracy, and flexibility, when we talk about the regulation of blockchain technologies? Is it possible to create an equilibrium between these 4 principal criteria? And it is true that cryptocurrencies have a reputation of being a vehicle of crime, and cybercrime especially. But the blockchain can also be used to help law enforcement agency track the illicit funds. So a financial system built on blockchain can enhance the effectiveness of financial regulation more broadly. Blockchain analytics can also be used to identify trends and develop intelligence about who may be facilitating, for example, the evasion of sanctions or money laundering or any other illicit activities. And by using the transparency of blockchain, the traceability of blockchains, criminals who thought they evaded detection in months and years past often find they've left a permanent audit trail for law enforcement to follow. And here we have an example of chain analysis, which is a company that's putting some algorithmic programs to track illicit funds and to cooperate with law enforcement agencies to track and trace the criminals using blockchains and cryptocurrencies to launder, for example, money or to finance terrorism. Finally, we believe that law should embrace technology, but also technology should embrace law. We have to understand the potential of blockchain so that when we see the problems it creates, we can compare and preserve the benefits of the technology the most and adopt and adapt the best solutions in this regard. The main objective is not to reduce the capacity of the technology. It is to tackle the problem created by the technology while maintaining its dynamism. We believe that combining law and technology can also help reach a better legal outcome than simply applying the law strictly on its own. At the end, I would like to thank you for attending. I would like now Noor to join me so we can maybe answer some questions. And that's it.
Thank you so much. It was really interesting, and we have a lot of questions actually. I would like to start with the first one. Is it sustainable to use blockchain?
Okay, this is not easy question to answer, but just to say that according to the environmental program of the United Nations, there's a report that was issued a few months ago, and that report concluded that blockchain is still in its infancy and given the potential to a negative environmental impact. The technology itself needs to evolve to foster the environmental sustainability at a scale. So I think that we have to wait for some more studies, for more research and studies about the impact, the environmental impact of blockchain in order to decide whether it is or not, whether or not it has a negative environmental impact.
Thank you so much, Noor. Next question. Why states governments are so late in integrating blockchain in their systems? Ultimately, in stable coins replicating their own currency, but facilitating control, transfer, use, etc.
Can you please repeat the question?
Yes. Why states governments are so late in integrating blockchain in their systems? Ultimately, in stable coins replicating their own currency, but facilitating control, transfer, use, etc.
Okay. I just, before you start, Noor, I want to, state governments are very challenged by this technology because it questions everything, especially the main central authority given to these governments, which is the central bank. Which is the main aspect of state sovereignty in this monetary world. So states government are trying to integrate blockchain technology in their system through like central bank digital currencies or through the digital euro, for example. but still maintaining their authority on the technology. So the technology will not be perfectly public. It will be a private consortium blockchain. So we have in the European Union, they are discussing now the MiCA, the Marketing in Crypto Assets Regulation, concerning crypto assets and the implementation of a digital euro. So, and stable coins also can be a problem in terms of financial stability. So, so that's why it's not really easy to use stable coins, and the governments are maybe
hesitating
or maybe hesitating to use stable coins, and they are going towards more digital euros or digital dollars, etc.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Can I use sign of copyright on any of my design or visuals?
Okay, the question is not clear, but if I understood the core of it, no one can use a copyright without getting the right from the owner. So there should be a license or a
I
grant
guess
of
it's
right in order to use
owner
the,
of, maybe it's owner of visuals
okay.
is asking.
Yeah,
Sure. If the person is owner of visuals or design, this person can use copyright sign, correct?
right.
Okay. Next question. Shall crypto be under any IP rights, as well as my NFT shall be under any IP rights?
The question is not to be under IP right, it's whether to see if the crypto asset is protected by IP right. And here we have to go back to the fundamental and the general conditions of protecting an asset. And if these conditions apply, then it will be protected. If not, it won't. So it's very basic.
Thank you. Next question. ESOS has been abused by scams and small companies. Do you believe that decentralized control is self-regulating, and how? Or we will be open to other problems in the future? Zaina, you're muted if you would like to say something. Okay.
So about ICOs, ICOs are a new form of decentralized finance. And when we talk about decentralized finance, it's not really clear yet what regulation and what law should we apply, because it's really a new form of finance that we are not used to. But when we talk about self-regulating or self-regulation in the decentralized world, such as blockchains, we talk about the rule of code, where the code will be regulating the system, the blockchain system, the cryptographic methods, the hash, and where the nodes are in charge of this system. Will it be open to other problem in the future? It is very uncertain, and all the regulators and the legislators are trying to tackle these problems and are trying to have a look in the future a bit to expect what's going to happen in this decentralized finance field. Should we create a regulation by design, for example, or should we let the code rule on its own, or mix the two, law and code? That's the question.
Thank you. We have another question. What about greenwashing through blockchain? Any law and special control on it?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. What about greenwashing through blockchain? Any law and special control on it?
On greenwashing on the blockchain, we have the general regulations concerning anti-money laundering, counter-financing terrorism, but they are applied to the national law also. So the French law will be incorporating the European directives concerning this. We have the AML D5, I suppose, and
Thank you, Zaina. Next question for Noor. For Noor, is there a discussion in WIPO to adopt the blockchain technology to register trademarks?
For the moment, it is unclear, but what I know is that back in 2020, the WIPO provided a service. It's called Proof Service, and it's a date and time stamped digital fingerprint of any file to prove the existence of a specific point in time. But unfortunately, 1 month ago, I think in January, the program was terminated, and the existing account holder will be able to continue their accessing to the dashboard. But for the future, now the project is suspended, so nothing is clear. At least as I know, nothing is clear on this point for the moment.
Okay, and we have, let me just check that this is the almost last question. We have another one. Can I fill documents to get trademark by myself, or I have to ask legal support anyway?
It really depends on the countries and the scope of the trademark, because every IP office has its own registration process, and this is totally different from a country to another one, from a region to another one. So we should check the legislation or the procedure set by the country that we want to protect our trademark in it, and to see whether a person can register its own trademark on itself, or do we need a lawyer or even an intellectual property counsel, as like in France there are specific people that are allowed to register the trademarks.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to pick a last question from Maria. Should we aim more for a whole new kind of laws to regulate blockchain, or is adapting enough at this point?
Okay, I think, and I believe more that we should adapt the law. We cannot aim for a whole new kind of laws. Because I think the law, the current law, and how it is trying to adapt to new technology is good, and the law is flexible, is going to be capable to adapt to new technologies. So I think to have the law as we know it now, with the new technologies and the opportunities they offer to incorporate them together, would be the best idea. For now, adapting is enough. It's all that we have for now. Then it's more easier to adapt now than to create a whole new law, in my opinion.
Okay, Zaina and Noor, I would like to thank you for a really amazing webinar today. I wish we can have more time to talk about it, because we have so many questions and it's really topic super hot and nowadays. I'm wishing you a great week ahead, today Monday, and thank you so much for also thank you everybody who watched us today, and you can watch our recording later on. Thank you, and have a